Hi everyone, Christina here. I'm the Gallery and Studio Manager of River Arts on Water Gallery and Studio. We are launching into another interview with an upcoming instructor. We are so excited to welcome Kay with us. She will be teaching an Introduction to Pastel course in June of 2021. We are so excited to have her. Kay, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. My full name is Kay Brathol-Hostvet. I do business as Brathol-Hostvet Studio. Sometimes people have a hard time finding me if I don't tell them that. I'm best known as a painter of Wisconsin landscapes in soft pastel, but I also do work in acrylic on canvas, both representational and abstract imagery, as well as working in several other mediums once in a while.
Would you be able to tell me a little bit about your background and maybe how you came into being an artist?
I would love to tell you that. I grew up in a large family in the little town of Hammond, Wisconsin. Art was always my calling, I would say. I don't remember a time when I wasn't drawing and painting. And when I was in high school, I took every art class offered. Lucky to have great teachers. Then right after high school, I married young and had two wonderful kids. But I always worked on my art. I was also working full or part-time different years in the magazine printing industry and raising my family. At the time, I was working mostly in oil paints. But after my first baby was born, I was uncomfortable with those solvents in the house. So my husband bought me a set of Rembrandt pastels as a gift. I don't even know how he knew to get the good stuff to start with, but he did. And my passion for that medium just took flight. I took several week-long workshops back when I was in my early 30s, and that fueled my desire further to go full-time with my art. And so for 4 years, I did art fairs, but I found it frustrating and really didn't like that method of marketing my work. It was just too many variables, the weather, and all kinds of things. So in 1993, I applied to a gallery in the Madison area. A lot of people know it. It's now moved to Stoughton. It was called Artisan Gallery in the old days. Now it's called Able Contemporary Gallery. Mm-hmm. And I was accepted into that gallery. And then in 1995, at the age of 35, I decided to go to school and to get a degree in art and legitimize myself as an artist. I had always loved school but didn't have that opportunity to attend college after high school. So I attended Stout, and that period was one of the most happy times of my life. I loved college, and I loved learning about myself and my motivations to create. I loved studying, but especially loved learning about design, figure drawing, pottery, those types of things. I ended up graduating summa cum laude from Stout at age 40 with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in Studio Arts with concentrations in painting and life drawing as well as a minor in English. So I had kind of a backwards way of doing this. I was actually a professional artist and then went back to school and got a degree to legitimize myself.
So Kay, can you tell me a little bit about how long you've been teaching and how you got started teaching?
Okay. In 2003, I rented a large studio space about 10 miles from my country home. It was so large that it seemed wasteful not to share it with others. And also, when I had been in college a few years before that, I had often helped out the younger students and was told by them and some of my professors that I should continue on, get an MFA, and teach. But that wasn't in my plans nor in my budget. So instead, when I had this other studio, I worked up a few outlines, put some ads in the paper, and before I knew it, I had about 200 or 300 students that were coming regularly to classes in drawing, design, pastel, and acrylic painting. I loved teaching. It was so fun. I enjoyed it just as much as doing my own work. And it paid the rent on my studio, which was the original intention.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, but then, I've left that space a long, long time ago, but I've been teaching now regularly for 17 years.
And what would you say, in your opinion, is the hardest part about teaching?
The hardest part about teaching is that every student is different.
Sure.
No two students learn the same way. Some are very hands-on, some work intuitively, some really want only occasional feedback. They really want to be kind of left alone. Others are very academic and they love those very clear linear instructions. And weirdly, to me, though, that's the best part of teaching as well. That's the hardest part, but it's also the best part for me because I love the challenge of figuring out how the best way to reach someone. I love making the basics understandable for people, but I also love working with advanced students that maybe need to be pushed beyond their comfort level.
Okay.
That to me is exciting.
What would you say is the best part about teaching?
I love when I can connect with them and figure it out. What is it that particular person needs? And that's what I'm most known for, is being able to sort of tailor my instruction to each person. And that's why I'm not comfortable teaching groups of 25 or 30 people. I like it when I can work really hands-on individually with people. And I love people, and I love seeing them grow. I've had some students that have become professional artists, and it is just wonderful part of that.
If let's say someone signs up to take your class with us at River Arts in June, which is Introduction to Pastels. What could students expect to learn about in that class?
That class gives a very comprehensive understanding of the history and capabilities of the soft pastel medium. They'll learn about various densities, that's the hardness of soft pastels, and that there is a range from very hard to very soft. Why we may want to use any one of those or all of them at any certain time. They'll learn about the incredible varieties of paper available, how those papers can influence the look of the final work. We study a little bit about color theory, the use of underpaintings, about mark making, and how those things all work together to create style. And the thing, I guess, that I really like about that intro class is getting people to understand that working from photos is okay, but we also have to have some experience from life. And so that's something else they will do in class, is doing some work from life as well as working from photos.
Okay. And is there anything that they should know or have prepared ahead of time, or is this okay to walk in with zero experience?
They can definitely come in with zero experience. I love working with those kinds of people. The biggest thing I always tell people is not things, it's having an attitude to be a student, to be willing to try new things, listen to what the teacher's saying. There's usually a method to a madness. And and I tell people just that's the main.
So attitude is the biggest thing.
Definitely.
So a little bit of a left turn here. Do you ever notice that, have you ever found yourself learning things while you teach? And this could be technically or even personally.
Oh, all the time. Students are like the greatest teachers because first of all, you'll learn a lot about being a teacher by just teaching. You're around them and having to be flexible, all those kinds of things. That is a big part. But I also, almost every class, some little nugget of information will come from my students. I have a couple of favorites that I've now incorporated into my curriculum because students have taught me things. One in particular was, it was a student who started as a beginner, and she's very advanced now. I've been encouraging her to enter shows and that type of thing. And she came up with this system for not ripping the backing board. When my students work on a padded surface generally for pastels. Mm-hmm. And when you would take the tape off your painting, a lot of times it would rip off some of that padded surface in the background. Well, she was brilliant and used this thick layer of packing tape that didn't reduce the padding, but it made it so the tape would slide right off. I was like, why didn't I think of that?
If I could ask, you are still a practicing professional artist, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell me a little bit about your personal artwork and what media you tend to work in or what you're working in right now?
Sure. My art currently fits mostly into two categories, landscapes and abstracts. Okay. I'm most well known as a pastel painter of landscapes. Within those other things, because like I said, I work in a few other mediums occasionally for my own enjoyment, and I do sell some of those works on my own. But I have these detailed pastel landscapes. Those are kind of about, they're about time and place. I don't know how else to describe it. They're very tightly rendered, and my interest is showing what I call expectant stillness, or sort of the pregnant moment. I am looking for that certain time of the day, like as the sun is about to set, or the clouds are about to burst open, or the snow is just beginning to melt, where you get these transitional times and you kind of hold your breath like, oh, something's changing. That's what excites me about the landscape, and that's what I usually focus on my pastels. And probably the landscape, mostly farmland. I think that probably comes from raising my kids in the country. That's where I've felt the most alive, I guess, is being out on the farm with my kids. The other medium that I work in regularly is acrylic, and that's sometimes landscapes, but more often abstract. And then those works are more about texture and exaggerated color, and they're kind of a great mental break from the real planned type realism that I'm doing with the pastels. So it's a nice mental break, nice seesaw for me.
Are there any themes? I know you mentioned the kind of pregnant pause with your landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any themes at all with the abstract work, or is it more a design composition based artwork for you?
That is definitely composition and design. I usually start by sort of throwing some paint around. A lot of my abstract pieces are things that when I'm teaching an acrylic class, I will start a canvas as a demo for somebody. I'll say, here's how you could start. You could do an L-shaped composition, or you could do a cruciform composition, and then I'll do a demo. Or I might use the same canvas and later demo how they can do a glaze or how they can dry brush. And a lot of times I'll take all those demo canvases, bring them home, and then bring them up to fruition on my own and make them into things. So they sort of starts for teaching that then I finish for myself.
I just have one last question for you, and that would be, what would you consider to be the best piece of advice you've ever been given? Or if you'd prefer, what advice would you have for someone thinking of taking a class or starting to teach?
Those are really good questions. I'll answer them both, but the first one will be a short answer. My favorite mentor when I was in college, he was a painter, and he would come around and he would be like hang over your shoulders while you're working. And if he didn't say anything, you knew you were doing okay. But if he stood there a long, long time, you knew you were in trouble. There was something wrong with you. And he one time looked at a piece of mine. It felt like 5 minutes. It was probably 2. But he looked at it for so long, and he finally stood up and he sort of washed that motion of washing your hands like you're done with something. And then he said, sometimes, Kay, one must know when to call Dr. Kevorkian. And what he meant, of course, was that sometimes it's better to just start over. Don't be afraid to start over. Mm-hmm. We get so invested in something that it becomes precious to us, and that precious can really, really take us down a hole. So what I would say to students is that process is more important than product. That's what I say it all the time, whether you're a student or a teacher or a beginning teacher, and that you should be concentrating on just being there to learn something. That it's not important that you end up with a finished painting or drawing or whatever it is, but that you're learning the processes that make you a better artist.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think we covered, good questions. I appreciate the questions, and I really look forward to working with your group there. Let's hope everything turns out and we can go back to normal in 2021 for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kay. We are excited to have you join us. I'll put information about Kay's class in the description of this video below. And stay safe, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.